Hi everyone, again, this is Ravi Somayajulu, your instructor for Math 6. We're going to talk in this video about the distance formula. So if I gave you 2 points, how would you find the distance between those 2 points, right? So suppose I had 2 points, say P, x1, y1, and Q, x2, y2. Okay, how would I find the distance between these 2 points? So let's go ahead and plot these 2 points. So if I plot these 2 points, so let's say this is my point P, okay, and say this is my point Q, all right? So obviously we know that this point has coordinates x1, y1, all right, and this point has coordinates x2 and y2, right? So I'm trying to find the distance between these 2 points, which is the same thing as me saying what is the length of this segment PQ. Okay, and we don't know what the length is. Let's call this D, all right? So what is this D? And so what we can do here is, if I extend this line here, right, I get a right triangle. Let's call this point S. Okay, so what are coordinates of S? Well, let's look at the coordinates of S. If you go down with x, this is x2, and then y1. Okay, so if you remember your Pythagorean theorem, we know that d squared equals ps squared plus qs squared, right? So the idea is how much is ps and how much is qs? Well, this distance here is really the difference between the x coordinates. And so this distance, we can write this as x2 minus x1. And the reason I put it in absolute value is because I want to make sure that it's a distance and so it's not negative, right? Same way we can write this to be y2 minus y1, because all this distance is the change in the y coordinates, okay? So then we have d squared equals x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Now, we're squaring 2 quantities, and what happens when we square? When we square, we always get a positive number. So I can replace these absolute values now with the parentheses, and so I get d squared equals x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared, okay? And so if I take the square root now, I get d equal to square root x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So this here is your distance formula. Okay, so let's go ahead and write down what the distance formula is in a more formal way. Okay, so now let P, x1, y1, and Q, x2, y2 be 2 points in the Cartesian plane. Then the distance d between P and Q is given by d equals square root x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. All right, so this here is your distance formula. Now let's take a look at how we can apply this formula. Okay, so we learned the distance formula. Let's go ahead and see how to apply it. So here's an example. We want to find the distance between 2 points, the points 2, 5 and the point 6, negative 2. So how do we find the distance? Well, we know that d, and that's our distance, is nothing but the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared, all right? So pick one of these points as x1, y1, pick one as x2, y2. It doesn't matter which point is x1, y1 and which point is x2, y2. So I'm going to pick this one here as x1, y1, and I'm going to pick this point here as x2, y2. So if I substitute those values, I get d equals x2 minus x1 squared, so that's 6 minus 2 squared, plus y2 minus y1 squared, so that's negative 2 minus 5 squared, and I get square root 4 squared plus negative 7 squared, which gives me square root of 16 plus 49, and that is the square root of 65. Or I can put it in my calculator and I can get a value of 8.06. So the distance between the points 2, 5 and 6, negative 2 is 8.06.